On today's episode of Locked On Wild, after a heartbreaker in Game 4, we're on to Game 5.
Hey, this is Matt Foldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/firetv-locked-on to learn more. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we'll recap Game 4, an epic tilt that went the way of the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll talk about why this year's Minnesota Wild team has learned from previous mistakes, and we'll get you set for what hopefully is some better officiating in Game 5. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, joined by Alex Micheletti here today. And Alex, this series just continues as it unfolds to, I think, become just an ultimate heavyweight bout. Like, the Wild have been in every single game in this series, and they had several calls go that did not go their way. More on that coming up in a bit, because Vegas had calls that went against them that weren't called either. So I'm not going to say that the officiating was one-sided, because it happens. But the Wild overcame just hit after hit, shot after shot. Vegas finally doing their best work of the series and getting to the net and taking a lead 3-2 in the late stages, tying the game at 3 apiece, and unfortunately came up short in overtime. Through 4 games, there has not been an instance where the Wild have looked overmatched. I mean, there have obviously been pockets where Vegas has pushed offensively, but the Wild have had counter punches. They have had answers in the goal department. They are very much in this series as we head to Game 5 on Tuesday night.
Yeah, it's best of 3 now. So buckle up, back to Vegas. And now we're on the, one there, one here system. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting because the Wild, they're gonna have a bitter taste in their mouth going into Vegas there, because it looked, for the majority of that game they were outplaying Vegas. They just couldn't find a bounce, and Barbashev capitalized on his bounce there in overtime. But I thought the Wild played great again, especially at home. They gave the crowd something to cheer about for sure.
Yeah, and Vegas got the first goal on the power play. The Wild answered. Then the Wild took the lead. Vegas answered. Then Vegas took the lead. Then the Wild answered. And then obviously Vegas gets the game-winning goal. But just looking at some of the numbers, Alex, from the game for the Minnesota Wild offensively, 44 unblocked shot attempts. They had 10 medium danger, 5 high danger. So almost a third of your attempts from the face-off circle and in, which you like. And I know people are going to look at Filip Gustavsson's stats and say, well, he gave up 4 goals. He still managed to be 1.5 goals saved above expected throughout the course of the night, because Vegas managed a 5.47 expected goals, and Gustavsson was just he was just unreal. Like, it was a lot of pressure from Vegas, but he had amazing save after amazing save, and he continues to look fantastic in this series.
Yeah, he just made save after save. It was just incredible to watch, especially in that third period. He made a kick save with his leg pad that was just incredible. He made another great save on Howden too late. It was. I thought Hill was incredible too. The save that he made on Trennan on the breakaway there. I don't know how how that stayed out of the net. That was insane. But yeah, it was physical. It was tight. Again, these teams are starting to not like each other, which is interesting. After watching Montreal and Washington, it's like, yeah, it's getting ugly in this first round of the playoffs.
And you look at it too, it's just there are so many ebbs and flows during the course of a 7-game series. The top line for Vegas had been pretty quiet pretty much all series. Now their top guys have started to wake up a little bit. The Wild's top line has been fantastic all series. They were a little on the quieter side. We have seen secondary players step into scoring roles. Marco Rossi on the fourth line gets another goal in this one. Marcus Foligno gets his third goal of the series. Jared Spurgeon gets his first goal. Like it feels to me there's no intimidation on the side of the Minnesota Wild. They're not intimidated by this Vegas team whatsoever.
Yeah, they, especially, after that weird goal where it bounced in off Hurdle and in, where there maybe could have been a penalty with that, and it goes in, and you think they'd be demoralized, and then Jared Spurgeon comes up huge and gets that goal to re-tie it up again. That was just insane. I was not expecting that at all from Jared Spurgeon, but he got Hill to move again and got it in there. So yeah, it was every time they've kind of faced adversity, they've matched it in its face.
And if you want to point to one area, and we knew this was going to be a point of contention going into the series, is Vegas scores a couple of power play goals. The one was a double minor. Zeev Boyum high sticked Mark Stone, and I was bleeding all over the place. They got to the final 8 seconds of that double minor, and then Vegas is able to cash in. So once again, for the everydayers, we talked about how this penalty kills like a 90-95% of what they need to do. It comes down to that final 5%, and that often is the difference between being able to get a successful kill or not. They've had plenty of really good kills in this series. It's just it comes often down to a bounce. And even look at the last play of the game. Bouncing puck that Jake Middleton tries to clear, and he can't get a firm handle on it. Tries to get it out to the top of the zone. It's stolen. Shot on net. A lot of traffic in front, and Vegas scores to win the game. Every play, every inch is magnified in series like this. And like I said, the Wilds have had the bounces go their way in 2 of the games. Vegas has had the bounces go their way in the other 2. And even considering that, the Wild were still in this game all the way up until the end. So I guess, I know there was a lot of disappointment losing in that fashion at home. Look, the Wild are still right in this thing.
Yeah, you can't fault their effort. I mean, I thought they played great again, and Gus has been their MVP, and keeping it close. I mean, he hasn't given up a ton of goals all series. So I mean, he's right there matching it with Adin Hill, and Adin Hill had to. There was a lot of questions about him coming into this game, and he answered for the Vegas side too. But they've Eichel hasn't had a gigantic game yet,
No.
and I think that's a big storyline of this series, because he's been relatively quiet.
And I like the lineup. I mean, yeah, you could probably point to heavy minute totals that are being played by your top guys, but
you have to at this time of the year.
That's the playoffs anyway.
Right.
Like, if you have a situation between, playing your second line that's maybe not getting it done at the level that you'd like, or playing Kaprizov, Eriksson, Ek, and Boldy, they're getting that shift.
Right. And Ek and Kaprizov, they were off for a while, so they can handle it. They haven't, I know they had injuries, but they've been, they're more fresh than everybody else because they haven't had the bumps and the grinds for a couple months. So yeah, give them all the heavy minutes.
Some of these totals, like I'm just looking at defensively, like Brock played 33.
It's insane.
Brodin played 31. Middleton played 29 and had 7 blocked shots. And Spurgeon played 28 minutes.
Well, I don't think Z played in overtime, right? So I mean,
no, he didn't. And I understand John Hynes' reasoning. At that point, we're talking about a 19-year-old who is playing in his first ever NHL action. And while he has shown some impressive flashes here early on, it is also a lot to take in for a 19-year-old playing his first action at the NHL level in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I have no problem with John Hynes giving him a breather in overtime. I know the Wild had a power play in OT that they weren't able to capitalize on, so you can check that as a box where maybe Zeev can help you a little more in that regard. But honestly, there wasn't a lot of get to the net on that and other power plays. So that's not something that a defenseman is really going to help out. So I don't know. It's like, people that listen to this show regularly know that if I'm bothered by something, you're going to hear about it.
Yes.
And I just like other teams do things like this in the postseason all the time. Would I have liked to have seen Zeev play in overtime? Sure. Am I upset that he did not? No, not even remotely. There are all these little moments that lead to winning or losing a game like this. And if you're John Hynes, if you're any coach in the NHL, you go with your gut. You go with who thinks gives you the best chance to win those games. And Hynes did that. The Wild didn't end up getting the win in this case, but they're going to go on the road and they're going to give Vegas everything they've got in Game 5.
Yeah, 100%. They just got it, and they've won there. That's the key thing is they've won a game there already in this series, so they know what it takes to win there. The atmosphere is going to be nuts because it seemed like for a while there that Vegas was going to be done, right? And then they find a way to tie up this series. Everybody was panicking over Adin Hill and Eichel and Stone not having any points, and then they get this tied up. But like we talk about, there's just such a roller coaster of emotions. You have to try to stay even keel as best as you can, and like you said, it just comes down to inches. Barbashev gets one right out front, and a typical Ivan Barbashev goal too. So
yeah, and Barbashev said after the game, overtime goals often are gross, and it was a gross goal. If Filip Gustavsson finds a way to be able to get a hold of it, we might still be playing at this point.
Right.
But that's how it goes. And I keep emphasizing, because I'll never forget when Kevin Gorg said it on these airwaves a couple years ago during that Dallas series. You're going to go through the entire range of emotions from game to game. After wins, you're going to feel like you can win the Stanley Cup. After losses, you're going to feel like your season is over. It is all about turning the page and gearing up for the next game. And I'm confident, after hearing the post-game thoughts, I am confident the Wild have done that. And we're going to look at some of those thoughts because I really liked what Marcus Foligno had to say after the game. I liked what John Hynes had to say. I liked what Filip Gustavsson had to say. So we'll pull some quotes and we'll talk about just turning the page, because for the third consecutive postseason, the Wilds had a 2-1 lead and could not win Game 4. So we'll talk about why this may be different when we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, It is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, Monarch can help you check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. There's no need for 6 or 7 different finance apps. Monarch Money has it all in one place. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 50% off your first year. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. We will have a postcast for you on Tuesday. I was absolutely delighted to see the start time of that game, 8:30 p.m. So we will be we'll be ready to rock once the game is done. Hopefully after another Minnesota Wild win. And as far as live shows go, we will keep you posted as to when the next one is. Denny under the weather this weekend, so we did not obviously have the live show on Sunday, but we'll keep you posted as to when the next one is coming up. Alex, I don't know if you saw the quotes from various players, but I was pretty impressed because this Wild team, those that have been fans for a long time, we've seen over the last 2 postseasons. You get up to a 2 games to 1 lead, and teams feeling great. They feel like they're, on top of the world, and we see not a ton in the way of adjustments by the Wild, tons of adjustments by the opposing team. So I find it interesting, first and foremost, that Bruce Cassidy didn't make a ton of tweaks, which I think is pretty clear that he is viewing the things that have gone wrong for the Golden Knights as pretty correctable and more like mental mistakes than actual like lineup mistakes.
Yeah, 100%. And it's nice to have that experience too from the previous series, like you said, and learning from. It looks like they are learning from their mistakes. They almost had them. It was so close to 3-1, right? But they know that they can hang with this Vegas team. The past or like the first couple of games they were underdogs. I think they've been underdogs in every game. So they're taking that with a chip on their shoulder. Like you said at the beginning of the episode, and what we've talked about throughout this series, a lot of the role players are really stepping up, and they're delivering when they get their opportunities, especially Ryan Hartman. He's just been the dog out there for sure.
I want to go to John Hynes first, and I'm pulling from Michael Russo's recap article after Game 4. Here's what Hynes had to say. He says, "Oh man, we're in a good spot. Hard fought battle, played well again. The game was right in our hands. Both teams competed hard. We knew it was going to be a hard series. Love where we're at. I mean, we knew it was going to be a hard fought series. Really like our game. We're here, man. We'll just keep grinding." He's exactly right. Like this Wild team and we're going to talk about the rest of the West playoffs here in a second, because you want to talk about like high roller coaster of emotions. Imagine being a Winnipeg Jets fan right now, because holy moly, they might have a goalie problem. But the point that I make is, we haven't seen, and obviously I'm kind of putting myself in a potential spot to have to put my foot in my mouth. We haven't seen the Wild get routed in any of these games. These games have all been very tight, very physical, very intense, and have come down to a play or two, one way or the other, that often leads to the win. So, you'd be foolish to not say we're right in these games. And the biggest thing I think that has surprised me is the tone for the officiating, because let's be honest, overall, not one side or the other. Overall, it's been brutal in in these games. Like you have Tomas Hertl,
entire playoffs. Yeah, the entire playoffs.
You have Tomas Hertl get taken down by or take down Ryan Hartman right in front of the net.
WWE right in front of Gus. Yeah.
You have
and Stone did that on purpose. He pinballed it off Hertl. That was on purpose.
You have Stone to the point that he was looking at the officiating and starting to skate to the box, anticipating being called for a penalty and then having one not called. And I'm, for the Vegas fans that are tuning in, I'm pointing out because I'm specifically looking for the Minnesota Wild examples. I'm sure the Vegas fans will point examples out in the comments. And I'm not trying to dismiss those. It's just I'm looking at the ones that I see to make the overall point that the officiating has been pretty bad. But you listen to these Minnesota Wild players, in particular Marcus Foligno. He was asked about it after the game point blank, and he said, we're not going down that road. He said, we can't get into that type of situation because, we have to just control what we can control. That is not something that we heard from the Wild against Dallas. That is not something that we heard from the Wild against St. Louis. And so do I think that this 2-1 only to lose in 6? The Wild this year could very easily still do that. They can still win the series. So I feel like this is a more mature group that has learned from those previous failures, because we saw how unglued the Wild got at the officiating against Dallas. They have been frustrated, sure, but they don't appear to be letting it get to them like previous years have.
Yeah, and that's the mentality that they have to have, and especially it's good to hear that from Marcus Foligno after the issues he had in the previous postseason series with Dallas, and some of the guys on this team have reputations with the officials, with the refs, so yeah, they gotta continue to say the right things, and these just like I mentioned too in that previous postseason, how Pete DeBoer was kind of using mind games in the media, and that's another way for teams to do that, and that's good that the Wild aren't kind of falling for anything in the media as well.
The funny part is you look at Ryan Hartman, for example. He has not been called for a penalty yet this series. And you look at another guy, Yakov Trenyan, who you would think maybe would based off of his style of play. He hasn't been called for anything either. So the Wild they've still taken some penalties, sure. But the thing that you have to worry about is the retaliatory stuff.
Yeah.
Where somebody does something that the ref doesn't call, you retaliate, they're going to call you. Or when a Vegas player does something to try to kind of irritate a Wild player, knowing that they're taking a penalty to try to get the Wild to go to, Wild aren't doing that. So it's a group that has learned from the critical errors of the past and is looking to not repeat them this year.
Yeah, because Vegas is that they're just waiting for the Wild to make a little tiny error, and they capitalize on that kind of stuff. We saw it. We've seen it in previous games where they they got a shorthanded goal the other night, and Vegas has some excellent penalty killers. William Karlsson and Riley Smith, and so yeah, they're just they're a team that pounces on those little mistakes, and the series is so tight you can't afford to make any mistakes. They have troubles at times, as we know in the face-off dot, and so that's another way that Vegas is trying to tilt their the ice their way, getting possession of the puck.
Last thing that I'll say before we talk about the West playoffs, offsides needs to be allowed to be played out and reviewed, because Justin Brazeau was not.
No,
Not offsides.
I don't know what the referees were thinking. I wish, like how the NBA does, they have like a 2-minute report. And for whatever reason, the NHL doesn't have one.
The pool reporter, the NHL doesn't do it because they know that the officials would get lambasted every game because it would end up being Russo that would be the pool reporter,
right?
And
well, there was
he would ether the officials.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday there was in the NBA playoffs, the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks. The game was on right before the Lakers Timberwolves, and so obviously everybody was watching it because the Timberwolves were going to be on next, and they completely missed the game. New York was trying to make sure that Detroit was not going to win the game, and Detroit put up a 3, and the guy got nailed. And they didn't call a foul. And in their 2-minute report, like right after the game, they said, "Yep, we screwed up."
They're like,
"Whoops,
should have been a foul."
And it a really so that made the Knicks go up 3-1 in the series, and it could have been 2-2.
Yeah,
and it's like, sorry, but yeah, that could really affect the entire series, and especially Detroit was at home too. That was
a huge swing.
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce Cassidy had his Bill Belichick moment with that too many men on the ice. I'm going to use this opportunity to conveniently yell at the officials so that we can try to get this figured out before anybody knows what's going on. I was like, I was listening to that whole thing go down during. I was furious, but after the fact, I'm like, that's chess. That's 3D chess by Bruce Cassidy. I can't help but I hate it to the point that I respect it, and I'm like, that's a coach that wants to win at all costs.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Pete DeBoer mindset. Yeah, in the media.
Yeah. Well, let's finish by taking a look at the rest of the West, because it turns out Vegas might be, or not Vegas. Winnipeg might be in trouble. We'll talk about the West series when we finish today's episode of Locked On Wilds after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I got a bag of the no shell honey roasted variety on my coffee table at all times. And you better believe I was doing some snacking this weekend, watching the NHL and the NBA playoffs. It's one of the greatest snacks I have ever come across, and I can't imagine watching great sports without it. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Coming up tomorrow, we will dive into more of the keys for a Game 5 win, and we'll also take a look at some of the options the Minnesota Wilds could deploy if Marcus Johansson is still not able to return to the lineup. So that's all coming up, and perfect timing. As we're recording this, the Edmonton Oilers have just beaten the Los Angeles Kings 4-3 in overtime. So now every single series in the West is knotted up at 2 apiece. I was going to put that in the bullet points for today's show, but I didn't want to chance it because the way the Kings have been playing, figured they maybe would be the first to take a 3-1 lead. Not so fast. So let's talk about the West, Alex. Which team is in the most trouble? Because you've had series where teams get off to rough starts. The Oilers, the Blues, they have both gotten off to rough starts and have rallied back. The Dallas Colorado series has been much like Minnesota and Vegas, just very back and forth, and teams kind of grabbing momentum. Although I will say, Game 4 was hideous for Dallas. It was awful. Like one of the worst performances in a playoff game I've ever seen. And I cheer for Minnesota teams. So, but why do I feel like the team that is in the most trouble right now is Winnipeg?
Yeah, Hellebuyck is off again. He's kind of turned into a pumpkin in the postseason again. It's really too bad because he had probably the best regular season ever for his career. And it's just I don't know what if the pressure's getting to him or what the deal is. But the Blues are a heck of a team too, with the way Jim Montgomery has them being coached right now. And it's that is definitely the hardest battle for sure. That's the one team that Winnipeg did not want to see.
Yeah, and it's like you look at the numbers, and in this series alone, Connor Hellebuyck has been 7 goals below expected, which he is almost 2 goals worse per game than expected. And I think it's a combination now of both him kind of in his own head and that Blues defense trying to overcompensate to help him out. And you look at all the goals, and it's all traffic in front, and Hellebuyck he cannot see the puck when there are people in front of him.
Yeah, and well, I mean, in yesterday's game too, I mean, there was point shots that were going in. I mean, Falk had one from deep, Tucker too. I mean, so it was. I don't know what's going on. He's usually really good at those far out shots, but St. Louis is just really outworking them, and it's Winnipeg's in one for sure.
And we got to talk about Gabe Landeskog. That was one of the coolest things I have ever seen
with his kids there.
Yeah, like the Avs are a rival team, although I definitely have a ton of respect for what the Avs have done as a franchise. It's impossible to not enjoy watching Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen when he was there, Gabe Landeskog as well. I think Jared Bednar is one of the best coaches in the league, bar none.
Yes.
And so I have been that has been one of the best stories in the last bit of the year to the playoffs, is him coming back after what Landeskog went through over the last couple of years. It was trending more towards him never playing again than it was for him to come back on the ice. And now he's working his way back to the top of the lineup, scoring playoff goals. It is as good of a comeback story as you will ever see.
Yeah, and so many athletes would have probably given up, or I mean, it was almost 3 years. Just think, and I know he's under contract, so Colorado was going to have to pay him regardless. But they gave him opportunity to make this comeback. They let him have a couple games in the AHL with their minor league team, the Colorado Eagles, and looked great there. And but to get thrown right in to the playoffs is something else. And then to score, it's just pretty cool. He's playing on a line with Minnesotan Brock Nelson. So that's kind of cool. He's kind of worked his way up into that second line for the Avs.
And he, that interview that he did after the game was great with the TNT crew.
Yeah.
TNT crew, we need more of you.
Right.
Because ESPN, you got Buchagras saying that we need to get rid of the regional sports networks in the first round of the playoffs, which is a joke. It is amazing how it just feels like TNT actually cares about the sports that they cover, and ESPN feels like it's a burden.
Yeah,
which is just it's just amazing that you have that contrast.
Yeah, it's like they're just paying it to have it.
Yeah, they were doing the LA Edmonton game remotely again.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. You can't have that happen because the fans know it too. It's like they're just.
And I should clarify too. I should clarify too. It was TNT that was doing the Edmonton LA game remotely, not ESPN, but also ESPN just like, I don't know. I just want a network that mostly cares about the league like TNT does.
Right.
Because ESPN is just, they're like, we want to talk about Shedeur Sanders not getting drafted till the 5th round, and that's all we're going to talk about today.
Right. Well, they should have more room next season too, because TNT basketball is done. So hopefully, maybe they'll get more games on TV. There should be more national TV games.
Put Shaq on the NHL and TNT panel. Do it.
Yes.
Do it.
Charles will.
Yeah, that would be fun. Well, these playoffs have been. I think the Vegas Wild Series has been one of the best in the West so far. It's been just high drama all game long, and we knew it was going to be this way. So I know the loss in Game 4 was disappointing, was deflating, but if any Wild roster is going to shake that off and gear up for Game 5, it's going to be this one. And we'll just have to see what happens. We're on to Game 5. We're on to Vegas. Another opportunity to try to get back on top in this series, and I can't wait for it. So thanks everybody for tuning in as always. Make sure to subscribe. The post game after Game 3 did just raucous numbers, and so we're hoping that the postcast after Tuesday's game does similar numbers as well. But you can catch every episode throughout the course of the week by subscribing to Locked On Wild. So make sure you do so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new ones for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.